Live from the mist-enshrouded mountaintop fortress that is X and Y Communications headquarters, you're listening to the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. And now, here's your host, Scott McKay.
Greetings, gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of the world-famous Mountaintop Podcast. I am your host, Scott McKay, at Scott McKay on just about every social media platform out there except for Instagram, where I'm Real Scott McKay. Hope you'll check out all the new YouTube videos at Scott McKay on YouTube. The website, as always, is mountaintoppodcast.com. And gentlemen, if you have not yet gotten in on the Facebook group, which is Mountaintop Summit, hey, we're waiting for you there. All of us guys are talking about very relevant topics to us as gentlemen nowadays in the 21st century, and you should be a part of it. Speaking of being a part of it, you know, we talk about relationships between men and women around here, but with the singularity fast approaching and people talking about AI seemingly more than they even talk about, well, transgender issues nowadays, life is becoming a little bit more complicated out there. And the next thing you know it, you're going to be starting to hear more and more about relationships between human beings and, wait for it, robots. Okay. It was a pie in the sky discussion years ago. And by years ago, I mean like 1 year ago. But now with ChatGPT ruling the world, or about to, according to South Park, at least you're going to be warned ahead of time of what may be eagerly awaiting you. You feel rejected by real women. Hey, you know what? Maybe the robots will have another take on that whole subject. With me today is a new friend of mine. He's a good guy. He's an extremely interesting guy. He's over in Houston, which is just a short shot down I-10 from here. His name is Steve Favis, and he is head honcho over at Favis Advanced Robotics Corporation, but you can call it far-corp for short. And he is actively building AI robots, and he's here to join us for the first time today. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Scott. Thank you very much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, you know what? I had a brief visit with you over text before we got on the show, and I think you might be one of the guests who's most excited to do this show. Man, you were champing at the bit. You were even talking about doing it in person. This particular topic seems to excite you. Tell me about the chord it struck with you when I brought it up. I'd love to hear more about that first.
Yeah, definitely. For one thing, there's a lot of fear, and I call them AI phobias, and that's going on as far as fear of AI in the future and doomsday scenarios. I have a complete opposite perspective. I think Elon Musk said humans will be pets to the AI, but I believe it's going to be the opposite. AI will be like pets for humans, and I believe humans will always have a superior reign as far as artificial intelligence. I believe there's a natural cap as far as what robots can do, and we will always be superior in nearly every way except for specialized tasks.
So the guy I've always heard talk the most about it, or at least the earliest I heard the term singularity, was from that cat Peter Diamandis, who's specifically a futurist.
Yeah, Ray Kurzweil talks about the singularity too. Yeah, I believe his Ray Kurzweil's singularity interpretation is the ability for us to go from biological to synthetic and upload our consciousness forever to whatever may probably evade or stop death, natural death anyway, which I'm still highly skeptical of that. So,
have you ever seen the TV show called Upload?
I don't think I've seen Upload, no.
No? Oh, well, that's exactly what it's about. I believe it's on Amazon Prime. And it's a show where people can do exactly what you just said. They upload their consciousness at the point of death and ostensibly live forever. But here's the fun part about that show. It's a comedy.
Oh, interesting.
So, you know, it's loaded with glitches. And I think what makes it more fun than anything else is that it takes place like 20 years from now, not like in the far-flung future. So when they're showing like traffic scenes where they're driving along the road in their self-driving vehicles, every once in a while you'll see about a 2020 Ford F-150 drive by.
Oh, nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, it's a fun show. Yeah.
So there's still flaws in the process and goofy things and glitches that happen, basically. Huh?
Oh, yeah. That's baked into the plot line. It's tremendous.
That's great.
I think they've got 2 seasons so far. But, yeah, the singularity can also be interpreted as the point where AI becomes smarter than we are, and they aren't necessarily, well, equipped with a human soul, so they may not be as benevolent towards us as we may have been towards them. But you sound more like a pull the plug guy. Hey, if it just gets out of control, pull the plug on the server, right? Something to that effect.
Yeah, exactly. Part of the technology I make, the patents I have in robotics, I'm designing them with the assumption that humans will always be in the loop. In my humble opinion, human catering will always be necessary in training AI. The reason why I could train AI so fast, specifically humanoids in the real world, is I use a simulation technology, and I accelerate the time step in the simulator so that 1 second could be, 5 to 10 hours in the actual simulator. And then I train the logic, pathfinding, vision, and motor skills inside the simulator. Once that logic is baked into an AI model, then I bring it to the actual real world humanoid, basically. So it's kind of like the equivalent of raising an infant to adulthood in a matter of weeks instead of 18 years.
Oh, that's just fascinating. I'm glad you brought it back around to practical reality at the end of your description there, because that's exactly what I was going to ask about, was the practical nature of taking time and condensing it when you're building robots, but you explained it perfectly. But see, that to me is a little scary. I mean, if it takes a robot a second to learn what it takes a human being 18 years, then really the sky's the limit, even in terms of how much time it would take for a human to teach all these robots and for them to learn for themselves, right? If the algorithm's written as such.
For sure. That's part of the reason why the simulation environment is there. You can actually observe the behaviors. And if there's something not wanted, the AI model doesn't have to be pushed to the actual humanoid robot, basically. So we can always check the equivalent of what the robot's doing in its, I want to say, simulation or dream state. It's kind of analogous to a human being learning by dreaming, basically. So in that sense, I don't ever believe the robots, the technology that I make, will ever be what people refer to as sentient, where they'll make their own decisions and say, hey, you know what, the humans are in my way. We're gonna take over. That will never happen with my robots. But in the case that does happen, we can train them to defend against an AI that is rogue or very dangerous. The only thing I could really fight a bad AI is a better AI, basically. So
you're building the white hat good guy robots.
Yeah, absolutely. I sincerely believe that humans, from now into infinitude to the end of time, humans will always have to be catering artificial intelligence to do what's right and what's wrong.
So it's fascinating to me that while you're building a robot, you can kind of see its mental state. You can kind of read its mind literally from a monitor while you're building it. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You could observe them from a third person in the simulator, as if you're just watching somebody from a security camera, or you could observe them from the first person perspective, from what they're viewing.
Oh, that's amazing. What does that look like?
Well, it's like playing a video game, a modern day first person shooter, or just watching a video game, basically. So similar simulation technologies, game engines, basically, to control and train them, basically.
That's just fascinating. So you can see inside a robot's dreams and see what it's generating in its mind visually.
Absolutely, yeah. So when it's training upstairs, you're going to see it falling downstairs and start restarting, setting up, and resetting. The stairs will change dynamically, and you'll see it happen really fast. And you'll see when any glitches happen, when it falls, and what causes the fall. And you'll see the AI adjustments. You can slow it down, but it's going to be like watching a VCR DVD and fast forward, but going way faster.
And you're building these robots actively now.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. Our patents are filed. We have the 3D models. We have some of the simulation technology. The boards are about maybe 60, 70% complete. The board on board is probably the size of your cell phone, with just probably about the same amount of compute. And then the simulation training technology is off the robots. A lot of people are building these giant robots because they're trying to do all the computation on board. That doesn't need to be done. The training needs to be done with more compute. And after that AI model is exported, it's a very small file, and that goes to the onboard computer for speech, vision, and other motor skills and stuff like that, or whatever tasks are trained. So,
piece of cake, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Just a bunch of little files,
Yeah, exactly. I didn't innovate these technologies. All I'm doing is putting them together in a very creative manner, so that I'm just grabbing the Lego blocks and building something that works really well together, basically. Something long lasting that we'll probably always need and have use for.
What are the applications you're focused on?
Yeah, so manufacturing, number one, we have a problem with labor right now. Right now, we're competing with Chinese slave labor, or prison labor, basically, and we need something to compete with them. And manufacturing is my number one target, so that we can have boring, repetitive, dangerous, backbreaking work done by robots instead of people.
Well, that's no fun. That's a bummer. Let's talk about fembots and sex instead.
Okay, all right.
Now, as you were talking about being able to see their dreams and read their minds, obviously the titillation that could come from reading the mind of a fembot who exists to please you and only you could be one hell of a movie trailer, couldn't it?
Yeah. The bottom line about my robots is anatomically, they're the same as humans, so they can have similar anatomy. There's no biological aspects, no cells or anything like that. But physiologically, they will look very similar to humans. It'll take a kind of a close-up look to see that they are artificial. But the skin will feel more like a synthetic silicone. I think there's current sex doll manufacturers that use the same silicone. But there are full-size humans. There are full-size humanoid robots. Anatomically, they're the same. So we could construct a male or female basically anatomically similar, and it'll have a similar chat technology to whatever we train it to be, in the sense that if you've ever seen that Her movie, have you seen Her with Joaquin Phoenix?
No, I have not.
He falls in love with an AI. That's a very plausible situation, basically. So the robot itself won't have real feelings, but it'll emulate them, and whether that's nurturing, sensual, or humorous, that can all be catered on the robot, basically. So you can literally have a chat conversation with any of them in whatever attitude you like or prefer. And not only that, but she'll be able to wash dishes and do the laundry. So
and make you a sandwich.
And make you a sandwich. That's correct. Cooking is definitely going to be one of them also. Yes.
Not to throw cold water on all the fun here, but is there any aspect to this technology, even if it's so-called perfected, to the point where the robot can emulate just about any human emotion, any human action, any human conversation, where we as real, full, red-blooded human beings are still going to feel a little empty with this? Or do you think we'll get over ourselves in a few decades?
That's a really good question. I think human-to-human relationships will always be the most desired one. I mean, obviously, biological plus biological is the best. But I think there's a significant portion of people out there that either have trouble socializing or are shy, or need to learn how to socialize better, or get trained and get confident in socializing better. People will always crave and desire biological versus biological, but in those gaps where people need nurturing, encouragement, some sort of personality problems they have or whatever, I think robots, conversational AI, I think is a great solution to stuff like that, basically. So.
Now, I'm going to give lip service to all the obvious benefits here, because I know these guys want us to talk about them. Those benefits would be there's no rejection. She's going to be willing. She's not going to cry rape on you. She won't file for divorce. She won't get pregnant. Wow, wouldn't that be amazing? Talk about singularity. We would have multiplicity. She will do all your bidding for you, all your cooking, all your cleaning. Do it perfectly every time, or else there's a malfunction and we call the technician, who's probably also a robot, or we just download new software. She can be updated in terms of her consciousness, her know-how, her knowledge as the years progress. And it probably wouldn't even be simply about downloading a new personality. If you would like something different or someone different, I don't even know how to refer to the creature or the creation, but I think it would be just as easy, I would imagine, to build a toggle switch in there where, I don't know, it's kind of like my pickup truck. I can have it in sport mode, economy mode, shut up mode, subservient mode, argue with me a little bit mode, S&M mode, have different complete modes for whatever you're in the mood for. So you wouldn't have to put up with her crap. You could just order up whatever crap you'd like and have her fulfill the mission. If she breaks, you fix her. She doesn't age. She doesn't give you STDs. You don't give her STDs. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, the benefits are obvious. And yet, I think the detrimental effects wouldn't be so much obvious and in the moment as much as longer term on civilization. I mean, how would we be training ourselves, let alone training the AI, if that becomes normal?
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think totally everything you've said so far has been completely correct about switching out personalities and personality modes. That's 100% correct. But as far as the ethical part of it, humans are still doing these things that you're talking about now, basically, and we have a problem now with human trafficking now. And those people that are being human trafficked, whether it's labor or sex labor or whatever, why would you ever need a human traffic, a real human being, when you have a robot that can do everything that those people are basically being kidnapped and trafficked over? So I think in the big picture, there is some good that's happening here.
Well, yeah, and I'm not saying there isn't anything that's benevolent or positive to be found here. I was simply listing the obvious ones because I think they'd come at us with torches and pitchforks if we didn't talk about it. I mean, the blowjobs are going to be better. The sex is going to be amazing. You're clearly going to have a woman who's completely involved and interested and guilt-free. I mean, I haven't even thought until just right now about the faith-based ramifications of never committing fornication with a real woman again, or cheating on anybody or anything like that. I mean, if you're dogmatic enough to think that if you're having sex with a robot, you're fornicating, or your masturbatory tendencies are still sinful, well, then I guess this isn't going to help you much. I suppose it'll just, if anything, add to the problem and the complexity thereof. But insofar as the problems, man, I got to tell you, Steve, we're pretty selfish nowadays. I mean, narcissism is the new buzzword. You talked about trafficking and humans using and abusing other humans. When it becomes the de rigueur standard to have a machine in the place of a human, how are we training ourselves? We're training ourselves to be that much closer to being soulless ourselves, aren't we? I mean, unless it's somehow self-moderated by conscience or by some set of standards. I mean, I'm sure the warnings will be sounded from the rooftops, but will people heed them is my question.
Yeah, that's some really good questions. I think for the most part, we will always need people to do certain amount of labor, certain types of labor that some people may find unpleasant or not want to do. And sometimes people have to do these jobs just to make ends meet, basically. So I'll use massage therapy as an example. So, some people are great massage therapists. They love their job. They love healing people, making them feel better from pain or whatever. But there's still a certain percentage of massage therapists that don't have a choice, and you can tell when you're getting the massage that they just don't want to do it. And you can tell.
Kind of like when your wife just doesn't want to make you a sandwich, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm using sandwich as a euphemism.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. But for these people that don't want to be there, don't want to do the job, I feel like robotics will take that gap and not make those people's lives miserable, basically, especially repetitive jobs that are long hours, very repetitive and physically demanding and stuff like that. But
in other words, my next divorce lawyer will be a robot. How ironic would that be?
Yeah, don't be surprised. I think that AI has passed the bar, basically. So I suspect it has. If it hasn't by now, I'm sure it could, basically. But
we raised the bar and passed it.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah, I'm
looking more for an AI sex bot, fembot, who will lay down the law and break it. That sounds like more fun to me. What do you think?
Yeah, a robot that toes the line. You mean as far as stuff, or what?
Yeah, that's a euphemism too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's have some fun with this, man. You're obviously a very smart, techie guy. We need a little comic relief in here. How about this? The robot brothel is basically a rent-a-store.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think a robot. I mean, I personally won't be involved in those myself, but I think a robot brothel is a very plausible situation. I think there will be the equivalent of robot pimps, basically. And
Robo pimp.
Yeah, robo pimps. Exactly.
Man, there's a movie script in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think so. Exactly. Yeah. I think there will be a robo pimp, and I think these will be used for sex, obviously.
I think that's the new name of the show. I'm going to change the name of the show from The Mountaintop to Robo Pimp.
Yeah, exactly.
I bet you it'll skyrocket my views. I bet I can find a co-host and make that show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, I don't mean to completely cut you off.
Yeah, no. I think this is a plausible situation. I think it will happen. There's already sex dolls that are out there that people are using that just talk. They're not full motion and they're not fully interactive, and there's no sensory on them. But this will happen with robotics. It's bound.
I just want to talk to the robot.
Yeah, exactly.
I promise, nothing more.
I just want to talk to the robot. Yeah, exactly.
I just want to talk.
Yeah, just want to be friends with the robot.
Yeah, can you imagine the Robo Cop, Robo Dad sitting on the front porch with its Robo weapon if you do anything to its Robo daughter? Now, someone's going to be a wild genius and come up with that just to kind of keep life interesting.
Yeah, now we're getting into the Westworld scenario where it's a themed amusement park of robots, disposable robots.
Yeah, or maybe I'm just writing that movie script already in my mind. But anyway, can you imagine the cleaning fee at the Robo brothel? Man, you thought that running a carpet machine was a hassle. Cleaning that thing when you're done. Imagine how much they'd charge you if you came back without cleaning the fembot. Or the fembot could be self-cleaning. Can you imagine that? Not that I would trust it or anything. The fembot's not going to get a period either.
That's true. That's right.
It's 24/7, 365.
Work 22 hours a day. The other 2 hours it's just charging.
Yeah, well, yeah, you would have charging time, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Unless it's like solar powered. Take the fembot to the beach, catch some waves, let it tan, sit out on a blanket, and then you go home and she can go all night, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it should have, like I said, 22 hours of service a day, doing average tasks and, nothing super heavy intensive. 2 hours a day of charging basically. And then it's working all those 22 hours a day, basically doing different tasks.
You could have a pansexual fembot. You could change it from male to female, couldn't you, if you were bisexual?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's
why not?
Exactly. Yeah, it could be any type of woman, any type of male, anything in between, basically.
I mean, I have my own personal reason why not, but I'm just saying theoretically.
Yeah, no. It could. The first generation, the first line of robots will just be gender neutral. There'll be no gender on them, obviously, but it is possible to make a robot with that's everywhere from hyper masculine to hyper feminine and everything in between.
Well, they already sort of do have female sex robots, don't they? At least in beta stage.
Yeah, I think the closest company that's doing that right now is Real Doll. It's not safe to put on screen, but realdoll.com. They're made in Southern California, and they talk, but they're like giant. They're not really giant, but real life human sized dolls that you could talk with, basically. So
they're not your grandfather's blow up doll.
Yeah, they're definitely not a blow up doll. That's for sure. So,
well, that brings us to the question of price. You thought marriage was expensive and divorce court was expensive. How much is the first generation of these babes going to cost?
That's a really good question.
Probably 6 figures at least.
No, actually, we're talking about around the $40,000 price point with a 5-year service life, with as long as there's nothing exorbitantly difficult, repetitive, heavy lifting or heavy work or intense work, basically. With about 5-year life, about $40,000 a unit. And most likely it'll be something you purchase with your house, is like, an appliance for doing dishes, laundry, or whatever, or something like that. So
much like your wife and your kids, you can be on the hook for about 15 or 30 years paying it off.
It depends.
Mortgage it.
It depends. Yeah. So, but if you think about it, a $40,000 price point isn't that much. Compare that to human labor for a maid, an organizer, a cook that's in your house, working 22 hours a day. So just figure a staff of 3. That's less than a third that cost, basically. So
yeah, it's a decent sized engagement ring at Tiffany's.
That's correct. That's right.
These days.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. That's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now these guys are wondering, who is the audience for this podcast? Because it's starting not to be me. I feel you guys. We're having a lot of fun here. Give us your thoughts. I want you to give me free rein thoughts on the subtopics I probably haven't even thought of yet, let alone mentioned here, relating to anything AI as it pertains to sex, human relationship in the future. I just want you to riff, kind of as the grand finale of this show. Go for it.
Exactly. So everything from human relations, I think, as far as just the conversational AI, it is possible to have these things trained by licensed therapists, social workers, or whatnot. So for counseling, I think it's something that can happen very, very easily once it's trained properly on the conversational model. As far as human relationships, people who have, for example, dementia, repeat themselves a lot, they can help provide that social experience as far as the conversational stuff. But for the most part, physically, manually, the robot is a very, very capable system, capable of doing dangerous jobs like firefighting, all sorts of stuff, heavy manual labor. I think the most dangerous job and at least documented by the United States is logging because of all the injuries that happen. And it's much better that we go through these robots as far as them getting injured instead of a family or somebody losing a parent from a logging injury or something like that, basically. So the net benefit of robotics, at least from the way that I see and the way that I design them, is tremendously beneficial to humanity. So this is something we have to go forward with, I think. And humanoid robotics will never go away.
Yeah, you just love to think about this from a generalist point of view. The whole fembot thing just makes one's head explode, doesn't it?
There's been a lot of movies on the fembot, basically, like Cherry 2000. I think that was I don't know if you saw that movie. It was a man who just had a robot companion, and he loved her, made love with her and all that stuff. And he made love with her by the dishwasher, and it got wet and broke. So he went on a quest to find that exact model. I don't want to give the spoiler. Well, maybe I'll give the spoiler because it's such an old movie. But the point is, he went on this quest to find this model that they didn't manufacture anymore. And then he fell in love with a real human being, basically, on that quest, basically. So
that's predictable.
Yeah, it is predictable. So it's not that much of a spoiler. But the point here is, I believe people will fall in love with these things. I feel like they could be lifetime companions, and they will provide longer term companionship than a dog that's only alive for 10, 12, 14 years or whatever. So,
well, as much as the world traveler in me is looking forward to having a female companion who can translate freely when I go to Japan the next time without my help, the one thing the fembot's never going to be able to do is bear you a daughter or a son that's fully human and be a mom to that son or daughter the way a real woman could. And I think that's pretty much the bottom line. That's kind of like the mic drop. A fembot's never going to help us writ large as the human race perpetuate ourselves as humans. It'll never happen. There will always be a time and a place for a real man and a real woman, real sex, real procreation. And perhaps, ironically, if not unexpectedly, all of our jollies, all of our getting of our rocks off, if you will, may be able to happen artificially, even as we go home to the person we love and make little human beings we also love in celebration of loving being human and perpetuating it. That sounds really crazy. It sounds really compartmentalized and fragmented. But my take is that's probably where we're going. So at least to some degree, we're probably going to have to get used to it because, we're probably more than halfway there just with the advent of HD porn, Steve. So there you go. His name is Steve Favis. He told me it rhymes with office, which is where he spends a lot of his time. He is the head of Favis Advanced Robotics Corporation. And when you go to mountaintoppodcast.com/robot, let's just go with that, you'll find his website, which is also far-corp.com, and you'll be able to read about everything he's got going on. Do you have any other items of interest to these guys at your website, any blog posts or videos?
Yeah. So in the summary of the next year or so, we're building a new facility in Texas here. We are going to be launching an equity-based crowdfunding campaign for our Series A raise. And I'll just emphasize, if you could register at that URL, far-corp.com or far-corp.com. Once again, that's far-corp.com. Just enter your email and you'll be put on a list for as far as news and updates as far as the equity-based crowdfunding for this technology. Significant world-changing technology here, and I have the patent that was granted in 2018 for any humanoid developed in the United States with similar anatomy to human beings. So it's a significant financial opportunity to get early in on a company that has patent grants and monopolies in these technologies.
So if a guy gives a particularly large amount, Steve, does he get dibs on the redhead?
That's right. If we get a pre-order of a large enough amount, we will make the robot look exactly the way that person wants that robot to look.
And if they don't like it, change the setting.
If they don't like it, we'll change it until they like it.
Very, very good. Steve, what a wonderful show. This has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate getting to know you. I'm fascinated by your work, and this has been a fantastic, fantastic episode. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Scott. Really appreciate it.
And guys, back here in the real world, if you have not been on your mere smartphone or PC and you haven't visited mountaintoppodcast.com lately, I can't promise you sexy fembot pictures and videos, but I can promise you free downloads of books you're sure to enjoy. You can also get in on the latest masterclass where we talk about a very specific way you can get better with women each and every month. I don't leave anything on the table. You guys know me by now. And also right now, if you want to up-level your lifestyle with women, long before the fembots take hold, we're talking about real women right now here in the real world at this particular moment in time. But hey, if you want to talk about the rise of the fembot, we could do that too. You'll have 25, 30 minutes to talk to me about whatever's on your mind. And if we can put together a plan of action to take you to the reality you envision for yourself in terms of success with women, well, then we'll put that plan in place and we will get on it. All that and more is there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. Also visit our sponsors, Jocko Willink's company, Origin in Maine, who makes everything in America. The best supplements you'll ever try. The vanilla protein powder in particular is revolutionary. If you're one of those guys who likes to use protein powder in the midst of your workout regimen or to bulk up, you're going to love Jocko's Mulk vanilla protein powder. If you haven't checked out the guys over at the Keyport, they're coming out with new face plates to personalize your everyday carry device all the time over there at the Keyport. This is not your grandfather's Swiss Army knife. It's not your grandfather's fembot either. But for now, it is something you can put in your back pocket and will help you on a daily basis until the fembots arrive. Finally, I have been working with the guys over at Hero Soap on some very new, interesting developments for you that we hope to release very soon. But in the meantime, if you haven't tried an actual shower with an actual female human being using their bath gel, you are missing out on one of life's pure pleasures. Go get you some of their bath gel. Also try their soap, which is made of all natural ingredients, won't feminize you. None of those scary terms you hear associated with the cheap stuff. My go-to scent is Cool, which makes me feel really fresh and, I don't know, I'm going to use the word tingly because I like that word when I get out of the shower. You should try it yourself. Imagine shaving with menthol shave, only your entire physique feels like that when you get out of the shower. Great stuff, well worth the investment, especially since those guys over at Hero Soap are contributing 10% to veterans' causes every time you make a purchase. Speaking of which, also be sure to use the code MOUNTAIN10 and write yourself a 10% discount with each of our three main sponsors. All the links to those guys and more are there for you at mountaintoppodcast.com. And until I talk to you again real soon, this is Scott McKay from X&Y Communications in San Antonio, Texas. Be good out there.
The Mountaintop Podcast is produced by X&Y Communications. All rights reserved worldwide. Be sure to visit www.mountaintoppodcast.com for show notes. And while you're there, sign up for the free X&Y Communications newsletter for men. This is Ed Roy Odom speaking for the Mountaintop Podcast.